Before you ever say a word to a woman, she is already forming an impression of you. She notices how you carry yourself. She notices whether you seem comfortable or tense. She notices your posture, your eye contact, your facial expressions, your pace, and the way you respond when there is a moment of silence. This is why becoming better at talking to women does not begin with memorizing pickup lines. It begins with becoming comfortable with yourself. Many men make conversation unnecessarily complicated because they treat every interaction like a performance. They believe they have to be funny all the time, say something incredibly clever, or constantly prove that they are interesting. And the moment they start thinking this way, they stop being present. Instead of listening, they are preparing their next sentence. Instead of enjoying the conversation, they are wondering whether she is impressed. Instead of responding naturally, they are analyzing every expression on her face. That pressure creates the very awkwardness they are trying to avoid. Real confidence begins when you stop treating a conversation like an examination. You are not standing in front of a judge. You are not trying to convince someone that you deserve their attention. You are simply meeting another human being and discovering whether there is genuine compatibility between you. That change in perspective can completely transform your communication. Your objective is not to make every woman like you. Your objective is to find out whether you actually enjoy talking to each other. When you understand this, you become calmer, you stop chasing approval, you become curious, you stop trying to control the outcome, and you start paying attention to the person standing in front of you. That is where genuine confidence begins. Confidence does not mean that you never feel nervous. You may still feel your heartbeat increase. You may still wonder what she thinks about you. You may still experience uncertainty, but confidence means those feelings do not control your behavior. You can be nervous and still speak clearly. You can feel uncertain and still maintain natural eye contact. You can experience rejection and still walk away with your dignity intact. That is real confidence. Your body language should support that mindset. Keep your posture relaxed. Do not force yourself into a rigid position just to appear confident. Relax your shoulders. Keep your movements natural. Do not constantly hide behind your phone because you feel uncomfortable. Make eye contact, but allow it to be natural rather than intense or forced. Let your facial expressions respond to what the other person is saying, and pay attention to the speed of your speech. When people become nervous, they often start talking faster. They rush through sentences because silence makes them uncomfortable. Slow down. Give yourself time to think. Give the other person room to respond. A calm pace communicates that you are comfortable enough not to rush the interaction. But remember something important: confidence is not domination. A man who constantly interrupts, speaks over everyone, or tries to control every part of the conversation is not necessarily confident. Sometimes that behavior is simply insecurity wearing a louder costume. Real confidence allows another person to have space. You do not need to dominate the conversation. You do not need to tell the best story. You do not need to be the funniest person in the room. You can listen. You can pause. You can ask something meaningful. You can let the conversation breathe. One of the strongest signs of confidence is being comfortable when you do not immediately know what to say. Most people fear silence because they interpret it as failure, but silence is not failure. Sometimes people pause because they are thinking. Sometimes both people are simply taking a moment. And sometimes the conversation naturally slows before moving in another direction. You do not have to rescue every quiet moment. The more comfortable you become with silence, the less pressure you place on yourself. You begin realizing that conversation does not have to be perfectly smooth every second. It moves, it pauses, it changes direction, it becomes serious, it becomes playful, then it becomes quiet again. That is normal human communication. Another major part of confidence is becoming less dependent on the outcome. If your entire sense of worth depends on whether a woman finds you attractive, every interaction becomes high pressure. A delayed response feels like an insult. A short answer feels like rejection. A disagreement feels like an attack. And suddenly one person's behavior determines your emotional state. That is not confidence, that is dependence. Your confidence should come from a deeper place. Build a life that has meaning beyond romantic attention. Develop useful skills. Take care of your body. Work toward meaningful goals. Read, learn, create, build friendships, explore interests. Become comfortable. Spending time alone, keep promises to yourself. Every time you improve your own life, you create evidence that you can trust yourself. That evidence becomes confidence. Then talking to a woman becomes something you enjoy rather than something you desperately need to succeed at. You also become more authentic when you stop copying other men. Do not imitate someone else's personality because you believe women will respond to it. If you are naturally thoughtful, be thoughtful. If you are naturally playful, allow that side of yourself to appear. If you are passionate about something, speak about it with genuine enthusiasm. Authenticity does not mean saying everything that enters your mind. It means your behavior is consistent with who you actually are. You are not pretending to be a completely different person. The goal is not to become a perfect conversationalist. The goal is to become present enough to listen, respond, express yourself, and remain emotionally steady regardless of the outcome. Once you reach that point, you do not need a collection of clever lines. You have something much more valuable. You know how to connect naturally, and that begins with one simple skill: listening. When you stop focusing on how you appear and start becoming genuinely interested in the person in front of you, conversation becomes much more interesting. This is especially important when talking to women. Do not treat women as a category that requires one universal technique. Every person is different, different personality, different experiences, different values, different interests, different communication styles. The goal is not to memorize questions. The goal is to become curious about the individual. Many men fall into the habit of asking question after question. Where are you from? What do you do? What music do you like? What do you study? None of these questions are automatically bad. The problem appears when they are asked mechanically. The interaction begins to feel like an interview. A better approach is to listen for something interesting inside her answer. Suppose she tells you that she recently started photography. You do not have to immediately jump to another unrelated question. You can explore what she just told you. What made her interested in photography? Does she enjoy landscapes, portraits, or travel photography? Was there a particular experience that started the interest? Now the conversation has somewhere to go. You are not forcing topics. You are following the information she voluntarily gives you. That is the difference between questioning someone and actually talking to them. Listen for enthusiasm, listen for stories, listen for opinions, listen for the subjects that make her become more animated, or pay attention to what she genuinely cares about. When you do that, you stop trying to control the conversation and start discovering it. But genuine listening requires patience. Do not immediately turn every story she tells into a story about yourself. If she describes an experience, allow her to finish. You may have experienced something similar, but you do not have to interrupt her with your own story. Let her experience exist first. Then, if it fits naturally, share yours. A simple follow-up can sometimes create a much deeper conversation than a long list of prepared questions. What made you choose that? What did you enjoy most about it? What happened next? Why was that important to you? Questions like these encourage stories rather than one-word answers. At the same time, listening does not mean becoming completely passive. A good conversation is an exchange. You should share your own thoughts, tell stories, express opinions, make observations. If she describes something funny, respond naturally. If she shares a difficult experience, you can offer your perspective. If you disagree with something, you can respectfully explain your position. The objective is not to agree with everything. The objective is to create an environment where both people can express themselves comfortably. One of the most attractive qualities in communication is the ability to make someone feel understood without pretending to agree with everything they say. You can say, "I understand why you see it that way," even if your own conclusion is different. That kind of emotional maturity creates trust. It shows that disagreement does not automatically become conflict. You should also learn to recognize when someone wants to continue talking and when they do not. If her responses remain consistently short, she does not engage with your questions, or she appears uncomfortable, do not keep forcing the interaction. Confidence does not require chasing attention. Respect the other person's space. Interest cannot be manufactured through persistence. Sometimes the right response is simply accepting that the conversation is not developing. That protects both your dignity and hers. Another common mistake is overanalyzing every tiny signal. A smile does not automatically mean romantic interest. A delayed message does not automatically mean rejection. A short answer does not necessarily mean she dislikes you. A long conversation does not automatically mean she wants a relationship. Human behavior is more complicated than that. Look for patterns. Does she participate? Does she ask about you? Does she willingly continue conversations? Does she seem comfortable? Does she contribute effort? Patterns are more useful than isolated moments. And remember this, a woman is not a puzzle you need to solve. She is an individual. You do not need to decode her like a secret message. You need to communicate and observe. If she is interested, there will usually be some level of reciprocity. If she is not interested, respect that. That brings us to another important skill, recognizing interest without becoming obsessed with it. Many men destroy their own confidence because they analyze every little detail. One smile becomes proof. One unanswered message becomes a crisis. One good conversation becomes a fantasy about the future. One short reply becomes a reason to panic. This constant interpretation creates anxiety, and anxiety makes natural communication much harder. Instead of focusing on isolated signals, observe consistent behavior. Does she willingly continue talking? Does she ask questions? Does she remember things you told her? Does she make an effort to remain connected? Does she suggest spending time together? Does she initiate sometimes? The exact signs will differ between people, but the principle remains the same. Healthy interest involves participation. You should never have to carry the entire relationship alone. This is where emotional intelligence becomes more important than clever techniques. If she seems interested, respond naturally. If she is curious, continue getting to know her. If she gives very little effort, do not spend endless energy trying to create something that is not developing. You can show interest. You cannot manufacture another person's feelings. And that distinction protects your self-respect. One of the most important lessons is learning not to confuse politeness with attraction. Someone can smile at you, someone can answer your questions, someone can enjoy a conversation, and still have no romantic interest. That is normal. Not every positive interaction is an invitation to pursue something more. Respecting that reality makes you more confident, not less. If someone is not interested, it does not automatically mean you are unattractive. Boring or inadequate compatibility is not a universal ranking system. Two good people can meet and discover that their personalities, values, timing, or goals do not align. That is not failure, it is information. A confident man can accept disinterest without becoming bitter. He does not insult the woman. He does not try to punish her. He does not attempt to convince her. He simply accepts the answer. That ability is powerful because it means your identity is not dependent on another person's approval. You can express interest without being desperate for a particular outcome. There is also a difference between showing interest and seeking validation. Showing interest means communicating that you enjoy someone's company and would like to know them better. Seeking validation means repeatedly needing reassurance that you are attractive, important, or wanted. The first can build connection, the second creates pressure. If another person becomes responsible for constantly making you feel worthy, the relationship becomes unhealthy. Build your own confidence. Do not outsource it, and never use manipulation to test someone's feelings. Do not deliberately disappear just to see whether she chases you. Do not create jealousy to measure attraction. Do not pretend to be unavailable when you are actually interested. Do not play psychological games. If you want clarity, communicate. If you like someone, show interest respectfully. If you want to see her again, ask. Then allow her response to be what it is. Clarity may feel more vulnerable than guessing, but it saves you from building an imaginary story around assumptions. Another important skill is understanding that attraction can make your imagination run faster than reality. When you really like someone, you can start creating a future in your head before you truly know the person. A few positive conversations suddenly become evidence of a perfect connection. Slow down. Stay curious. Keep learning who she actually is. Attraction should increase your curiosity, not eliminate your judgment. The strongest communicator is not someone who can predict every signal. It is someone who can observe, communicate, and respond without losing emotional balance. You do not need absolute certainty before every move. You need enough awareness to recognize reciprocity, enough confidence to express yourself, and enough self-respect to step back when the interest is not mutual. Once you understand this, conversations become much simpler. Now you can focus on creating interactions that feel natural, interesting, and memorable. You do not need perfect opening lines. You need curiosity, personality, timing, humor, and presence. A memorable conversation usually moves beyond basic information and begins revealing personality. Asking what someone does gives you information. Asking what they enjoy about it can give you a story. Asking where someone traveled gives you a location. Asking what experience stayed with them can reveal emotion and perspective. Facts keep conversations alive. Stories give them depth. That is why questions beginning with why, how, or what was that like can often create more interesting conversations than questions that can be answered with one word. If she says she loves traveling, ask which experience changed her perspective. If she enjoys reading, ask which book stayed with her. If she has a hobby, ask what originally attracted her to it. The point is not to use some secret conversational formula. The point is to demonstrate genuine curiosity. At the same time, do not turn curiosity into interrogation. Share yourself too. Tell stories. Express opinions. Let your personality appear. If she talks about something difficult, share a related experience when appropriate. If she jokes, play along. If she expresses an unusual opinion, explore it. Conversation becomes engaging when both people contribute something meaningful. Humor can help enormously. But humor does not mean insulting someone or trying to prove that you are superior. Good humor can come from the situation. It can come from self-awareness. It can come from noticing something unexpected. It can come from playful exaggeration. The goal is to create a shared moment, not make the other person feel small. You also need to understand that you do not have to entertain someone every second. If you are constantly trying to be funny, constantly telling stories, and constantly trying to prove that you are interesting, the effort becomes visible. Relax, listen, pause, respond. Some of the best moments in a conversation are quiet. You should also be willing to express your own opinions. Constant agreement is not the same thing as connection. You do not have to pretend to share every belief. If you disagree, you can say so respectfully. You can explain your perspective without turning the interaction into a battle. The purpose is not to win. The purpose is to understand how each other thinks. Storytelling is another powerful skill. Do not simply list your achievements. Tell experiences that reveal your personality. Talk about a mistake that taught you something. Describe an unexpected situation. Explain why you became interested in a particular subject. Share something that genuinely made you laugh. Stories give people a window into your character. And do not exaggerate your experiences just to appear impressive. If you need to invent a personality to maintain someone's attention, you are building a relationship on something false. Authenticity becomes easier when you stop competing with imaginary versions of other men. You do not need to be the richest, funniest, most adventurous, or most confident man she has ever met. You need to be comfortable enough to let your actual personality exist. Another common mistake is rushing a conversation toward romance. Attraction can develop naturally. Pressure can destroy it. Pay attention to how comfortable the interaction feels. If both people are laughing, asking questions, and willingly continuing, let the interaction develop. You do not have to force an outcome. Sometimes a conversation becomes more meaningful precisely because neither person is rushing it. You should also learn how to end a conversation naturally. A good interaction does not have to last forever. If the energy is fading, you do not need to desperately invent another topic. You can simply say that you enjoyed talking and continue another time if there is mutual interest. Knowing when to leave is part of social awareness. Quality matters more than duration. Now comes another important part of confidence, knowing when to move forward and when to step back. Many men believe persistence is always attractive. It is not. If someone has clearly communicated that she is not interested, repeatedly pushing will not create genuine attraction. It usually creates discomfort. If you are always initiating, always asking questions, always suggesting plans, and always carrying the interaction while she contributes very little, pay attention to that pattern. It does not automatically mean she dislikes you, but it may mean her level of interest is different from yours. Do not become angry about that. Accept the information. Confidence means being able to recognize reality without trying to negotiate with it. A confident man can say that he enjoyed talking and suggest meeting again. Then he allows the other person to decide. He does not send 10 additional messages because the first one was unanswered. He does not create endless explanations for repeated cancellations. He does not become resentful because someone did not return his interest. He understands that connection requires choice from both sides. If she says she is busy, do not immediately assume she is playing a game. If she declines an invitation, accept the answer. If she clearly communicates that she is not interested, respect it. A boundary is not a challenge, it is information, and respecting it demonstrates maturity. But stepping back does not mean playing games. Do not disappear deliberately to create anxiety. Do not ignore someone just to make yourself appear more desirable. Do not manufacture jealousy. Do not create artificial scarcity. Confusion is not genuine attraction. If you are interested, communicate honestly. If the interest is not returned, step away respectfully. There is much more strength in clarity than manipulation. Also, do not personalize every change in communication. People have work, family responsibilities, stress, personal problems, different priorities. One delayed message tells you very little. One quiet day tells you very little. Look at the overall pattern. If someone consistently makes an effort, an occasional delay is not meaningful. But if someone repeatedly avoids engagement, cancels plans without suggesting another opportunity, or gives almost no effort, the pattern becomes relevant. You do not need to invent a story. You do not need to blame yourself. You do not need to blame her. Simply recognize what the evidence suggests and decide where your energy belongs. Self-respect also means refusing to become someone else just to maintain another person's attention. Do not abandon your interests. Do not change your values. Do not hide your personality. Do not tolerate behavior that violates your standards simply because you are afraid of losing someone. If you have to constantly perform a different version of yourself to remain attractive, you are not building a healthy relationship. You are trading authenticity for approval. A healthy connection allows two people to remain individuals. You can have different interests, you can disagree, you can maintain friendships, you can have personal goals, you can say no, you can have boundaries, and you can communicate what you want without demanding that the other person provide it. This balance creates respect. No one has to disappear inside the relationship. You should also know when an interaction has reached its natural ending. Not every attraction needs to become a relationship. Not every conversation needs a second meeting. Sometimes two people simply do not fit. Accepting that without resentment is a sign of maturity. You do not need revenge. You do not need a dramatic explanation. You do not need to prove what she missed. You simply continue living. The goal of talking to women is not to convince every woman to like you. That would be impossible. The goal is to communicate confidently, discover compatibility, and build connections where interest and effort are mutual. When the connection is genuine, nurture it. When it is not, respect the answer. You can care without clinging. You can pursue without pressuring. You can be vulnerable without becoming dependent. You can hear no without deciding that you are worthless. You can walk away without becoming bitter. And once you understand that, you have developed a foundation far more valuable than any pickup technique. But there is one final piece. Your conversations become much easier when you build a life you genuinely respect. Many people try to improve their dating skills without improving themselves. They search for better opening lines, better messages, better ways to appear confident, better techniques for keeping attention. But if your confidence depends completely on how another person responds to you, no technique will give you lasting security. The strongest conversations usually come from a person who already has direction, someone with interests, someone with standards, someone with goals, someone who has built a life that feels meaningful. Think about what happens when you have very little going on in your own life. You meet someone attractive, and suddenly the interaction becomes extremely important. You worry about every sentence, you check your phone repeatedly, you replay conversations, you wonder whether she likes you, you become terrified of saying something wrong. The problem is not necessarily that you need better words. The problem is that you have placed too much emotional weight on one interaction. Now imagine the opposite. You have goals, you are developing skills, you have friends, you have interests, you have responsibilities, you enjoy your own company, you are working towards something meaningful. You still want to know the woman in front of you, but you do not need her attention to give your life meaning. That creates a completely different kind of confidence. This is why becoming interesting is more powerful than trying to appear interesting. You cannot manufacture depth through clever sentences. Depth comes from living. Read, Learn, travel when possible, explore interests, develop useful skills, talk to different kinds of people, take on challenges, do things that make you uncomfortable. Develop opinions through your own experience. The more you live, learn, and grow, the more naturally you will have things to discuss. You will also have stories. Maybe something unexpected happened during a trip. Maybe you made a mistake that taught you an important lesson. Maybe you developed an unusual hobby. Maybe you experienced something that changed your perspective. These experiences give your conversation substance. You do not have to exaggerate them. Their value comes from the meaning behind them and the personality you reveal while describing them. But do not build yourself merely to impress women. That would simply create another performance. Exercise because your health matters. Learn because becoming capable matters. Work because you want purpose and freedom. Develop your career because you want to create something meaningful. Build friendships because connection matters. Pursue goals because they matter to you. When these things have value independent of romantic attention, they strengthen your identity naturally. A strong identity also gives you standards. You understand what kind of people you want around you. You understand what behavior you will accept. You become less desperate for attention because you are unwilling to sacrifice your values just to keep someone interested. You can appreciate a woman without placing her above yourself. You can admire someone without losing your own identity. You can feel attraction while still asking whether the two of you actually fit. That creates a healthier form of attraction because there is no need for manipulation. You do not have to pretend to be unavailable. You do not have to create jealousy. You do not have to use calculated silence. You can communicate clearly and allow the other person to respond freely. If she is interested, continue discovering each other. If she is not, accept it and continue living. Your identity remains intact either way. Another major part of becoming confident is emotional control. A woman should not become responsible for regulating your self-worth. If she compliments you, appreciate it. If she disagrees, listen. If she needs space, respect it. If she rejects you, accept it. Your emotional stability cannot depend on constant reassurance. When you manage your own emotions, conversations become lighter. You are not secretly asking another person to prove that you are valuable, and that allows you to become genuinely curious. Instead of treating every woman as someone who must fill a role in your life, you begin discovering who she actually is. What does she value? What makes her laugh? What experiences shaped her? What kind of future does she want? What does she care about when nobody is trying to impress anyone? These questions create deeper connections because they focus on the person rather than the performance. Ultimately, the goal is not to become a man who can talk to every woman. That is neither realistic nor necessary. The goal is to become a man who can enter a conversation without fear, express himself without pretending, listen without judgment, recognize interest without obsession, respect boundaries without resentment, and walk away from incompatibility without losing confidence. When you develop that identity, communication changes naturally. You become calmer because you are not desperate for approval. You listen more because you are genuinely curious. You tell better stories because you have experiences worth sharing. You handle rejection better because your life has meaning beyond romance. And you become more attractive not because you discovered some secret trick, but because you developed yourself. So stop asking, "What can I say to make her like me?" Ask a deeper question. What kind of man am I becoming? Because the quality of your conversations eventually reflects the quality of your inner world. Build a life you respect. Develop a personality you are comfortable expressing. Create goals that matter even when nobody is watching. Become someone whose confidence does not disappear when attention disappears. Then talking to women stops being a desperate search for perfect words. It becomes what it should have been from the beginning. A simple, confident, respectful conversation between two individuals, discovering whether they genuinely connect. And when you no longer need to impress, you become much more capable of connecting. When you no longer fear rejection, you become more honest. When you no longer depend on attention, you become more relaxed. When you stop performing, your real personality has room to appear. And when you respect the other person while respecting yourself, conversation becomes natural. That is the real skill. Not a magic line, not a manipulation technique, not a secret formula. Presence, curiosity, confidence, emotional control, respect, self-respect, and a life that does not depend on someone else's approval. That is how you become better at talking to women. That is how you build genuine connection. And that is how you stop trying to win every interaction and start discovering the people who are genuinely compatible with you.